right, let's bring up the candidate. Well, actually, there's candidates for HD 114, but we only have one here. Dan Morenoff. Maybe I know Jason. I can just sit down there for him if you want. No, I don't think he'd appreciate me sitting in his seat. Saw one of the signs on the way here. Yeah, I mean, so it's almost like he's here. All right, let's start off with a question we didn't get to with the last candidates to represent in 113. What issue do you plan on making a priority? What piece of legislation do you plan to make a priority if you're elected?
I will tell you that my first job when I graduated from college was working for Phil Graham, and that one of my focuses, which would immediately take hold, would be the budget, because as he knew, the budget is what the government actually does. So you've got to focus on that and get things right there. In terms of what I mean by getting that right, I think we need to meaningfully cap the growth of government in the state of Texas, something that we have never done. We need to end the binge and purge cycle of budgeting that we've been on for generations, where when tax revenue's up, we go on a bender, and when tax revenue's down, we then have to fight with people who claim that their perfect program is being cut. I'll also flag as another thing that would have to be done in the budgeting process.
Oh no. Can we have it go on? Well, let's just, luckily we have.
Is that better?
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Another one would be this.
Try this one.
Better?
There you go.
Okay. Another one would be this. I think that it's sad and sick and not very Texan that if you look at two companies in the same industry and you want to know what rules and taxes each of them have to pay and comply with, the first thing you have to ask is when did they move to Texas, and the second thing you have to ask is how good was their lobbyist. These are entirely the wrong questions. The whole point of law is to establish simple rules of general applicability that everyone has to comply with. And we need to get out of this whole pattern of having government play favorites and carve people out of law. If we want to compete for businesses around the country, make our environment better for everyone so that small businesses and large businesses get to compete under the same rules.
Mr. Villalba made headlines not only here in the state of Texas but across the country when he proposed a ban on citizens utilizing their recording devices to get video capture or pictures of a police action. They had to be 100 feet away, according to the bill that was proposed by Mr. Villalba. What is your opinion of that, sir?
We should be more specific, because it also treated different classes of people differently. So if you had a CHL, if you were a licensed gun carrier in the state of Texas, you had to be 100 feet away. But you could carry a rifle and be 25 feet away and record an interaction. This was an insane bill that made no sense whatsoever and was deeply, deeply anti-constitutional.
Now we're back on? Good. Look, there is Supreme Court precedent that you have the right to record public interactions between police and citizens. Of course you have that right. It is crazy that at a time when 80% of Americans are telling us that police should wear badge cameras that cannot be turned off, our incumbent is trying to shut down your right to record any interaction with the police.
All right. You guys got most of that, right? Yeah. Okay, excellent, excellent. Sure, okay, all right. After our candidate here, I want you folks to remember we have a straw poll going on. They're going to shut it down here very quickly. So after we hear more from Mr. Morenoff, make sure you get that taken care of. All right, so I guess it's safe to say you don't agree with the premise of that bill.
I do not. I think it's also interesting that while at times the incumbent likes to describe that.
I think Billy Crystal did one of these type of let me see that thing. Sorry, we're not going to take away your time. Test. Okay, well.
All right. Look, at times, the incumbent likes to claim that that bill was a great bill that was just mischaracterized. At other times, he's also said that it was a mistake, that he didn't write it, that he didn't read it before he filed it. Yes, he really said that. I mean, his language was that I didn't vet it properly before I filed the bill that Public Employees Union handed me. I can't help you if you think telling us that you do whatever you're told by a union without reading it is a good idea.
All right. Let's move on. We talked earlier about this Syrian refugee crisis that's going on. Nobody doubts that there are people in dire straits around the globe. Problem is the current administration, either out of incompetence or no desire to do so, has admitted it cannot properly vet these individuals as to whether or not they're terrorists or not. Start doing a little more praying. So, what do you, in your opinion, if you get to the State House, what can you do to empower Texans to make sure that those who are coming in are true refugees and not some terrorist organization hell-bent on shooting up a cartoon-making gathering in Garland?
Right, they tried.
Yeah.
Look, I have 3 daughters, and I'm Jewish, and there are 100 million people around the world that dream of the chance to behead an American, a Jew, or if they're really lucky, an American Jew. Yeah, I take it personally that we need to actually stop them from getting here. Look, the first thing that we have to do is we must secure the border. Our intelligence community has been telling us for 15 years that they know for a fact that the mullahs in Iran are using the cartels to smuggle Hezbollah operatives into America. We know they're here. We know they're here, and we know they're sending more people. And this administration has told our border control agents that when the cartels are engaged in human trafficking, if they're bringing 6 or fewer people, just let them go. It doesn't matter. It's mind-numbing that this is how our administration is approaching things. If the administration in Washington will not do this, we must do it for ourselves. We know what a secure border looks like. Israel has built one in Judea. What we need is to build a fence. We need the fence to have monitors on it, and we need people close enough to the monitors that they can get there and do something about it. And frankly, we need to send Texans down there with rules of engagement that allow them to do something about it.
Well, since you brought it up, the Obama administration just came out, and the Border Patrol, rather dejectedly, in front of congressional testimony, said, I think the quote was somewhere along the lines of, we might as well not even have border laws, because all an individual has to do is say, hey, I've been here since 2014, and I have no felonies, and they are released onto the streets to be with us here in America. I can already gather that you think that's a bad thing. What would you do to stop it?
There is a difficulty in the overlap of federal and state authority. And I used to run a Federalist Society chapter, that's the National Organization of Conservative Lawyers. I resuscitated the Dallas chapter and turned it into one of the most active in the country. I think I have spent as much time as anyone thinking about opportunities to push back against both federal encroachment and judicial encroachment, whether federal or state. I will sum up that I think you have to think through the optics. And while border control is one that has great optics, I want to send Texans with real rules of engagement to confront the cartels, and I want to see what the heck the administration is going to do about it. Right? What are they going to do? They're going to send the National Guard to shoot at the Texans shooting at the cartels? That's a visual I want.
Oh, man.
Right? Like, there is no chance that that works out well for them. On the other hand, when we're talking about, like, when there's a particular person who claims that they've been here for 20 years and they're crying children, that's a visual that looks bad, and it's one where a judicial intervention is a lot easier to imagine how they're going to stop us. So I hear you, I share the frustration, but I want to pick my battles where we win them.
Right, all right. So if you are fortunate enough to win election, you will likely have, it was brought up in the first discussion, a Speaker of the House. many folks who are conservatives don't view as an ally. How will you get along with Joe Strauss?
How will I get along with Joe Strauss? I have no idea. We'll see. I know what I'm going to do. I think that it will be abundantly clear as we continue talking about issues that I'm rather critical of the House as a whole and some of the directions that it's taken. I think we necessarily know who that means I'm going to be often arguing with, but I try to assume the best about people and see what he does with me.
Not counting on any committee assignments, are you? Okay, very well. Governor Greg Abbott has come out in support of the Convention of the States legislation. Where are you on this?
I am deeply skeptical that that's a reasonable approach to fixing our problem.
I'll tell you why.
Tap on it.
Are you still with me? No?
Maybe? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay, look, I'm very skeptical this is a good idea. I'm skeptical for a few reasons. One of those reasons is that the problem isn't the paper. You know, our existing Constitution is not flawed. Our existing Constitution is ignored, and the other branches and levels of government don't push back. We need to push back. That's the problem. You can't change the paper and make the problem go away when that can be just as easily ignored as the existing paper. Now, I'll also say that I'm also enough of a history nerd to remember that our Constitution was crafted at what we call the Constitutional Convention, when it was called by Congress with a specific and limited agenda, and it ignored it. It ignored it, and then made up its own rules for ratification that didn't comply with what was in our previous Constitution. So I both think that we can't actually fix our problems through a convention, and that there's a real risk that we wind up making things disastrously worse if we pursue that course.
Okay. An addendum to that, a follow-up question on that. The engagement of the American people that would inevitably follow with a Convention of the States. Again, folks paying attention, it's quite a monumental thing if the Constitution is being changed. Then all of a sudden people are paying attention and holding accountable those into elected office who, by a 92% rate, are re-elected to the federal government. If the Convention of the States has, and full disclosure, folks, I've talked to these people. They have assured that they are going through rules and constructing rules so there will not be a runaway convention as is feared, and they're going to take one issue at a time, vote on one issue at a time. This happened back in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan, and it scared the living daylights out of those elected leaders in Washington. They ended up passing a bill that would not stand up to judicial muster, and they knew it, but it was enough to get the hounds off their backs, but it scared the living daylights out of them. What about the merit of reminding those in Washington who the bosses are?
Look, I mean, there's certainly something to be said for that. There is. I said I'm skeptical. I'd gladly talk to him about it. Maybe he can convince me that, in fact, this is a good idea. I'm very reticent. I need some convincing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Dan Morenoff, everybody. Thank you. Closing statement, sir?
Sure. Look, I'm a small government guy. I'm a competitive markets guy. I'm running against an incumbent who is neither. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm running against a guy who wrote bills that would have violated 4 of the 6 clauses of the First Amendment just last session. Both religion clauses, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the kind of things you memorized in elementary school. We deserve better than that. I hope that you will help me. I will tell you that we've obviously got signs. Please take them. Please sign up to volunteer, because we need your help. Thank you.
Dan Morenoff, everybody.